Ever since Grand Theft Auto 3 changed the landscape of gaming in 2001, open-world titles have become increasingly plentiful, wide-ranging, and ambitious. But which are the most rewarding? But the ones that make it their aim to satisfy the player's curiosity at every turn, giving them a gaming experience that they'll remember forever. I'm Josh from WhatCulture.com, and these are the 10 most rewarding open-world video games. Number 10, Borderlands 2. Okay, so Borderlands 3 is a technically advanced game, and Tiny Tina's Wonderlands is a great but significantly different spin-off, but neither of them tops the first sequel as the most rewarding Borderlands experience. While every follow-up to the original had worthwhile scoundrels on both sides of the morality scale, this one houses the greatest cast of characters. The 4 playable heroes are enchantingly entertaining and adaptable, giving players plenty of incentives to explore each one's class traits and personality. And let's not forget that Borderlands 2 introduced the lovably douchey Handsome Jack either. It's just a treasure trove of memorable personalities. The in-game environments themselves are also visually splendid, with the desert landscape of the initial Borderlands juxtaposed by icy backgrounds, industrialized hubs, radioactive caverns, and so on and so on. Naturally, these additions spawned a larger swath of colors and textures as well, so it just looks superb in general. Lastly, and most importantly though, the weaponry was a big leap forward, with a wide array of guns and other kits handling better and lending themselves to increased customizable loadouts. If this list is talking purely about rewarding experiences, then nothing loves to literally shower you with rewards more than Borderlands 2's open world. Number 9, Ghost of Tsushima. Fans of the Sly Cooper and/or Infamous titles weren't really sure what to expect from Sucker Punch Productions' latest effort, but fortunately the award-winning Ghost of Tsushima proved to be their masterpiece. Chiefly, hero Jin Sakai's tale incorporates the savageness and serenity of the samurai lifestyle. Amidst the fierce confrontations and graphic consequences are abundant opportunities to settle down at a hot spring, craft a lovely haiku, engage with animals, or just marvel at the breathtakingly sophisticated island of Tsushima. Part of that joyful feeling of investigation also comes from how the almost hoodless perspective lets nature lead the way via wind patterns and flying birds. There are also thematically enriching collectibles galore, with headbands, masks, helmets, and other relics adding greater authenticity to the world, and for customization for your character and motivation to uncover every inch of the land and complete as many tasks as possible. While yes, some of the activities may be repeated, Tsushima is a landscape that is just a joy to live in, and it's crazy to think that this is only a first attempt. Number 8, The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Over a decade on, what is there left to say about The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim? The RPG became a colossal, unprecedented success for 10 years and counting, thanks to its still cutting-edge open world that's absolutely crammed with cool things to find, see, and do. In terms of sheer scope, Skyrim still impresses despite competition that came after. Its varied, believable world houses so many interesting characters and locations, piling stories on top of stories. Yeah, the combat might feel a little bit dated now, but its world does not, especially when it comes to the cities that punctuate the sequel's sizable open worlds. As far as fantasy games go, Skyrim is still unbeaten, and if you throw in the DLC and the ridiculous amount of mods on top of the PC, it provides hundreds of hours of always engaging content, and while its more streamlined RPG elements might stop it from being higher on the list, it's still an accessible, fan-pleasing, rewarding RPG, and very little comes close to it. Number 7, Grand Theft Auto 5. There are, of course, a bunch of different GTA games that could have made it on this list, but if we're talking pure reward for the player, then GTA 5 tops the lot. For one thing, its multiple protagonists and intersecting narratives pushed Rockstar North's knack for compelling plots and distinctive characters further than ever before. It's all wildly tongue-in-cheek for much of the playtime, but there's also sizable pathos and relatability to Michael's midlife crises, Franklin's ascent, and Trevor's meta depiction of the player's own desensitization to lawlessness. GTA 5's Los Santos is just kind of a place to live in. Without conventional fast travel, you come to know these streets like you do your own in real life, slowly gaining a knowledge of how these back roads connect to the big city. There's a real sense of reward in mastering this landscape, turning an uncharted land into something intimately familiar. Plus, there's a plethora of things to get involved in throughout, dabbling in the cinema, real estate, racing, and various sports in between, allowing Los Santos and the surrounding areas to be remarkably involving. What really elevates GTA 5 though is its myriad surprises. Be it hidden UFOs and ghosts, countless references to pop culture, or secret locations and landmarks, the core experience is infinitely deepened by ancillary treats. Number 6, Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. Simply put, Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain's transition into absolute open-world espionage action revolutionized the franchise and made for one of the most addictive and rewarding gameplay loops of the last decade. Protagonist, Punished/Venom Snake, has a ridiculous level of freedom to complete objectives as he sees fit, with the player given an insane arsenal of weapons and gadgets to try out. Maybe he'll be completely stealthy by subduing or capturing enemies as he quietly progresses towards his main goal, or maybe Snake will slide down the side of a mountain in a cardboard box and send guards flying like bowling pins. Of course, there are plenty of other choices to make within those extremes, and with the option of relying on one of several distinct human or animal companions for help, as well as incorporating lots of cool unlockable tools, the possibilities are pretty much close to infinite. MGS5 is the kind of game that can make 8 hours vanish in the blink of an eye. Number 5, The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. Few IPs are as beloved as The Legend of Zelda, and a big reason why is its dependable and charming formula. Thus, Nintendo's audacious decision to step away from it with 2017's free-roaming Breath of the Wild could have been contentious. Instead, it led to a brilliantly inspired renovation that many aficionados rank as the series' best ever entry. Yes, the dungeons and bosses are typically inventive and generous, though maybe not as good as those in previous entries, with collectibles, upgrades, puzzles, fights, etc. for you to sink your teeth into. However, it's the fact that Link can now venture virtually anywhere he wants, whenever he wants, that turns this adventure into a genuine breath of fresh air. That independence also leads to a wonderfully intriguing Hyrule, with quirky characters, self-referential Easter eggs, alluring locations, both high and low, beckoning players for as far as the eye can see. What makes the exploration so rewarding though is that you have a selection of tools for the whole game, and it's up to you to use them to get around the title's puzzles as best you can. This isn't Rockstar style do everything in the order we want or restart the checkpoint. This is pure player-driven agency. And let's face it, how awesome is that? Number 4, The Witcher 3: Wild Hunt. Although Cyberpunk 2077's multitude of missteps severely hurt CD Projekt Red's reputation, it is hard to completely turn against them due to the excellence of 2015's The Witcher 3: Wild Hunt. If you've played an open world game in the past 7 years, chances are it was, influenced by Witcher 3, and for good reason. Whether you're traversing the dense metropolis Novigrad or the dark swampland of Velen, and/or participate in romances with sorceresses, you're constantly enamored by the title's novelistic aspirations. And that's doubly true once you dive into the enticing DLC. It's also got an encyclopedic level of lore to digest, with heaps of idiosyncratic people, places, and precedents to learn about. Equally important is the fact that Star Geralt and most of his friends and foes are also morally questionable, so there are few outright heroes of villains in the continent. It's no wonder why The Witcher 3 became the cornerstone of the franchise. After all, its monumentally satisfying offerings sparked a newfound interest in both the preceding games and books and the subsequent Netflix show. Number 3, Elden Ring. The latest entry on this list, Elden Ring, sees developer From Software continuing to improve upon the Souls-like formula of their most recent triumphs. Primarily, its immersive, varied setting, known as The Lands Between, circumvents a common downfall of open-world games by providing a massive locale that's actually full of things to discover, in contrast to a lot of titles which prioritize gigantic yet relatively barren areas. From hidden grottos, castles, and everything else housing weapons both inanimate and alive, to towering enemies begging to be found, there's always an exhilarating reason to go beyond the beaten and obvious path. Elden Ring also eschews virtually all traditional standards of handholding by foregoing waypoints and, by and large, map markers. As a result, players find more investment and agency than usual in finding cool stuff and finishing quests and other tasks. Granted, this might be frustrating at first, but the feeling of finally conquering an obstacle or encountering something new is more than worth it. This is the kind of game where you're uncovering huge, memorable areas 90 hours in that could have been the location of their whole sub-game. It just never stops surprising you right down to the last minutes. Number 2, Red Dead Redemption 2. Rockstar Games had quite the task in front of them following both 2013's GTA 5 and 2010's Red Dead Redemption. And unsurprisingly, they totally delivered, crafting the greatest open-world action-adventure western known to man. Taking place well before its predecessor, its examination of the Vandal and gang deterioration is enormously absorbing thanks to the gang's own complex relationships, as well as the narrative's broader historical commentary. There's the typical smorgasbord of secondary pursuits, unique NPCs, and gratifying dividends in which to indulge as well. However, Red Dead Redemption 2 would be fulfilling even without all of those things, because the sheer breadth and realism of its 5 major regions are enough to keep players glued to their controllers. Admittedly, the slow pace of the game won't be for everyone, but that methodical approach is ultimately what makes the title so immersive. It wants you to stop and breathe at every step, and as a result, the world becomes way more memorable. It is a shame that the multiplayer didn't live up to its potential, but the single player alone will be talked about for years to come. Number 1, Fallout New Vegas. Fallout New Vegas might have the best starting point for any open world game ever. Let me set the scene. You're a courier, you've been shot in the head and miraculously survived, and now you've got to go out there and figure what happened and carve out a new destiny for yourself, having just cheated death. As an RPG, New Vegas is almost unparalleled in terms of storytelling quality. There's massive amounts of flexibility in the choices and playstyles, permitting the multifaceted courier to become almost anyone the player envisions. Although the quantity of quests is perhaps a tad low, the quality of them is unrivaled. Beyond being able to tackle them in numerous ways, nearly all of them are engrossing narratively, with a variety of tones being employed across its main, side, and unmarked expeditions. The atmosphere, the music, the factions, the combat, it just all coheres into an unforgettable open-world experience. So that's our list. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. What do you think is the most rewarding open world game you've ever played? And is it something I missed off here? There are certainly a lot of them to choose from. Let me know, and while you're down there, could you please give us a like, share, subscribe, and head over to WhatCulture.com for more lists and news like this every single day. Even if you don't though, I've been Josh, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.